Of the U.S. presidents who have taken office since Franklin D. Roosevelt shut the vault doors at Fort Knox in 1937, not one of them has ever visited the famous gold depository. At least, none that we know of. And never has a president opened the doors to the public in order to verify the status of its solid gold contents, except for one time, in the fall of 1974.
Suddenly Americans lost faith in the government, and they started putting this big focus on Fort Knox, that building was empty, that this is a ruse, it's like our government's become a lie.
In 1971, after a bruising economic battle with France, President Richard Nixon had taken the U.S. dollar off the international gold standard. No longer was the U.S. dollar to be valued based on gold.
During the 1960s, when Charles de Gaulle was Prime Minister of France, he told other countries, if you owe me money, pay me in American dollars. And then he would turn those American dollars in for gold. That probably caused the biggest drain of gold out of the bullion depository.
But how much of America's national treasure was left? An anxious public demanded to know. So on September 23, 1974, Director of the U.S. Mint Mary Brooks led a carefully selected group of lawmakers and news media on a half-hour tour of the Fort Knox vault, as seen here in this incredibly rare footage.
We arrived by bus up Bullion Boulevard, aptly named, and as you approach the depository, you see signs that warn that federal officers inside are authorized to shoot to kill, and that admission is absolutely forbidden.
We went down from the first floor on an elevator down to the lower level where the gold is actually stored. And as we got off the elevator, and we just walked in right next to the vaults themselves, the cells full of gold.
Gold bar. Ready to start counting, boys?
Inside the vault room were 13 cells. Across each locked door hung a delicate ribbon with a wax seal, signed and dated as to the last time the cell was accessed. A primitive method, perhaps, but nevertheless effective.
You can barely touch those, and you can break a seal. Seal is broken, no one's leaving that building, because they're gonna have to send people down and audit that compartment to make sure that nobody's stolen anything out of it.
The delegation was ushered in toward the smallest of the compartment cells. Why that one, and not one of the purportedly larger ones, remains a mystery. But at the moment, no one seemed to care.
There, we're cutting the ribbon. Now we have to be very careful of this document.
There's nothing that was as breathtaking as having the seal cut on that door, the vault door open, and the floodlights from the television and from the still cameras, flashbulbs popping, going off the gold.
Can you believe that? Look at that. There's one under the ceiling.
We had an opportunity to pick it up and feel it and make sure it was gold. It was a little bit awe-inspiring, and I just wanted to sit and look at it for a few minutes.
It says approximately 22 pounds.
Most of the visitors left satisfied, having seen firsthand the magnificent contents of the cell.
Well, you satisfied all the gold is here? Well, I am, and I was before we came.
But to some observers, not all that glittered was gold.
They opened up the bullion depository, and on that night, they showed, for the first time since the 1930s, opening these compartments up and letting everybody see. But what they did was they opened Pandora's box. Because, yeah, everybody saw a bunch of bars stacked up in a room and then immediately started saying, and what you're looking at is probably fake.
Why had the visitors been shown only one cell? And why was access to certain corners of the vault complex denied? Over time, Photos taken during the event began to circulate in newspapers and magazines. But rather than reassure skeptics, as the mint had hoped, still more questions arose. Some questioned the quality of the gold based on its color. Others suggested that according to this AP photo, the bars didn't weigh 27.5 pounds as reported, but less than 22 pounds.
Of course, Treasury came out with a press release and said, oh, well, it was just some cheap scale, and so the scale was inaccurate. But if you magnify the photograph, you see that it was not a cheap scale. It was a standard issue U.S. postal scale.
Most intriguing of all was the possibility of a secret vault. One hidden not only from visitors that day, but one whose very existence is denied even now.
There's this famous picture of Mary Brooks taken by an AP photographer saying, look, all the gold's here. The room that they showed was Gold Vault number 13. And if you just do a simple napkin-like calculation of how many bars you see, and there are about 1 million ounces of gold in that room. And yet, the latest Treasury figures from the Treasury website show that there are 150 million ounces of gold in Fort Knox. So it would take 150 of those Gold Vault 13. So clearly something's amiss.
But did this single photograph really prove the existence of another, even more secret vault?
Unfortunately for Treasury, the former commanding general of Fort Knox, General John Ryan, wrote a letter saying that, no, Treasury's wrong, there is a central core vault, and I was in it. And then he made a hand-drawn map showing where Vault 13 was, which is on the ground floor. And showing where the Central Core Vault, which was in a subterranean area of Fort Knox, which is much bigger, which comprised almost the entire perimeter of the building, but it was underground. So once again, the government caught in a lie. Okay, why? Why don't they just fess up? So obviously, they're hiding something.
Why would the government refute the existence of a Central Core Vault? Is it part of their security protocol? And if each of the vault compartments only holds 1 million ounces, then where is the rest of the gold that the government claims is being stored at Fort Knox?
I think it might be a good policy if every few years the Treasury Department brought down a few people to take a look at it. But I don't think it's going to happen.
I was on the congressional inspection tour. There was gold in Fort Knox, and a lot of it. I can tell you that being there was an intense experience, but knowing that the gold was there in September of 1974 doesn't mean that it's still there today.